Alrighty, so you came here and you kind of just went, I don't know what I'm gonna do. But you came here, so I guess I can tell you a story. This story is the origin story of my favorite D&D character that I have ever played. Me and a friend, we decided to make twin characters, and it ended up much better than we had hoped, except for the fact that she was only there for a single session. So my character, who had attachment issues, had to keep going without her. And we all know how that went. It did not go good. But this isn't about the actual session. This is about who they are. This is about what made Inessa. This is her backstory. So, if you enjoy, I can keep going and I can tell you about the sessions, but for now, let's just talk about what went into Inessa. So, when I was making Inessa, I was like, okay, so I want to make a twin character. I already know a lot about Nico, so I kind of just made the base of Nico, and then I expanded up, and then I kind of moved it and made my own character with similar attributes, similar of that. Well, when we crafted the backstory, it ended up being we had different ideas of what we wanted, so we interpreted that in different ways, and we both ended up deciding on something very similar, which worked in our favor. And then both of us I wanted to play a more physical character, being like barbarian, fighter, all of that, while my friend wanted to play a more magic-oriented character, because she played a rogue one time, and she just was like, my rogue is useless. And I was like, that's because you didn't choose Arcane Trickster. Rogues can be helpful, but when you play an Arcane Trickster rogue, you can get a lot more stuff. Anyway, that's just my opinion. We're gonna pass by that. But when I was creating this character, we basically made them separate backstories that blended together a little bit. But basically, it ended up going really well, and our character, Inessa, is probably one of the better built characters that I've made. I've made some weird combos. I've made a barbarian. Oh my god, she's awful, but I love her so much. But it's beside the point. And now that I've described Inessa, let's go into her backstory. I know I said that about 2 minutes ago, but we're gonna do it now, I promise. It all started in a tiny little cottage in the middle of the woods where two babies were born. They were both half-elves, and they were both blonde with green eyes. They were both girls, and their names were Nico V. Aslananov and Inessa Aslananov. They were inseparable as kids. It was Inessa and Nico against the world until they were 2. And their parents had a fight. One took each child, Nico with her father, and Inessa with her mother. Inessa initially wept at the fact that she had no partner, no friend to call her own. And eventually, being young when you originally had that child, had that friend, she eventually forgot, but she never forgot. Here's a better way to phrase it than she forgot, but she never forgot. She forgot that who she was, but she felt that longingness in her heart every day that's another half of her felt missing. And so Inessa, to blind herself from that longingness, that loneliness, she trained with her mother every day to become the greatest barbarian she could. And eventually she learned how to rage. She learned how to do anything fun. She quite literally learned how to be a barbarian from her mother. And they worked with other barbarians in the area, and Inessa gained a small reputation there as her mom's kid. And she learned how to use a great sword with ease and became an amazing addition to her party, to her friends that were there. But eventually she went back to that tiny little cottage with her mom. And as she was sitting in a room alone, at the age of 12, she got a knock at her bedroom door. And someone who looked exactly like her walked in. It was her sister, Nico. Her mom and dad had reconciled, and Inessa's heart felt whole again. Once again, they were inseparable. They could not be separated. And if you tried to physically separate them, they would fight. They would literally fight you just so they could stay together. They never wanted to be separated again. And it stayed that way. And it stayed that way. It didn't change. And when they were 18, they became independent. They left their homes. And they left their home. And they went out into the world. They got to do whatever they wanted. They were adults now. But they both soon realized that money isn't as easy as you think it would be. Money is really difficult and really hard to deal with. So, as they were struggling, they both simultaneously decided, we need money. We need it fast. What's one way we could do it? Inessa brought up gladiator fighting. She'd heard about it from some of the people in her clan, and she was like, oh, why can't we do it? And Nico stayed at a small church while Inessa went out and made the money. She fought and fought and fought for about 3 years. And she gained a small reputation as a stronger fighter. But the problem was, she was not well known enough, because one person in particular asked to fight her. He was known as the Flying Feather. He was an Aarakocra. And one day, when Inessa got too cocky, when they were fighting, Inessa was mauled, tearing her face apart, making the right half of her face almost irrecognizable. Her already scarred body was incredibly mauled. And they presumed her dead. And they brought her to her sister. And she wasn't. Miraculously, somehow, some way, she wasn't dead. And it took hours of laboring, but Inessa made a recovery. She eventually healed from her injuries and got an irrational fear of birds. She was so, like, this Aarakocra tore up so much that she's deathly afraid of any bird that comes her way. And this will be very, very bad in the future, by the way. This is gonna suck in the future. This is just a spoiler. But she will hate the fact that she is now afraid of birds. But that's beside the point. And after Inessa healed, they both decided that they needed a better way to source money than gladiator fights, because it's just too dangerous. Because the more fame you get, the more bigwigs you attract, and sometimes you can't fight those bigwigs and you're gonna go down in the ring and you're gonna die. So they decided to go for something more peaceful, and they joined a peaceful organization called Mace. And they got on the boat to go meet their new friends, and one of them, and Inessa, stood by Nico's side looking over the salty sea and said, I think we're gonna have a pretty good time. And as the boat docks, they race on the shore, trying to beat one another, to meet their new friend, to meet the person that's going to show them where they're supposed to be. And they run straight through him. They both look up, and there is a ghost and a changeling with ghost hands. And that is where our D&D session began. Alright, so how did you like the backstory of Inessa Slononov and her sister Nico? Me personally, I absolutely loved it. I love talking about it. I don't get to talk about it in such detail very often, because, I have to talk about it in cryptic tense because, suspense with my party. But I hope you guys really enjoyed it. I enjoyed writing it. I enjoyed just getting it all out there and explaining it. But thanks for listening. I think I'm going to do another one of these eventually, about maybe the first few sessions. Just any way I can. But thanks for listening. Alrighty. If you get a chance, like and subscribe. Yes, I'm selling out, but it helps. Alright. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.